Hello students, welcome to English Lessons from Home. This is Rashmi Rekha Bora. Today I am going to discuss a poem from your alternative English syllabus. It is The Listeners, written by Walter de la Mare. First, let's know about Walter de la Mare. He was born in 25 April 1873 in London and died in 22 June 1956. Walter de la Mare was an English poet, short story writer and novelist. He is probably best remembered for his work for children, for his poem The Listeners, and for a highly acclaimed selection of subtle psychological horror stories. Let's learn about the subject or setting of the poem. We see here that the principal subject is the world of the supernatural. Another subject is world of children, but in this poem, The Listeners, we see only the supernatural. Here, he escapes from reality to live in the land of fantasy and dream. And we see, while going through the poem, that there is an artist in creating magic. The poem tells the story of an unnamed traveler approaching an abandoned house in a forest, but no one answers him, as only some ghosts live there. He has come to keep an unnamed promise, but the poem leaves the reader quite perplexed because there is no explanation of what is happening, what will happen, and why happened. So the reader stays perplexed. Let's see what is there in the poem. "Is there anybody there?" said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest ferny floor. So in the poem, The Listeners, the poet speaks about a traveler who came to visit some people in a lonely house amidst the forest. Here we have seen the word forest ferny floor. This refers to that the house is situated in a forest. It was a moonlit night. There is a reference of the moonlit door. He knocks at the door, but nobody answers. In the midst of the pervading silence, there was only the sound of the horse eating grass. So the poet creates a supernatural, a mysterious atmosphere. It is night time. The house is situated amidst the forest. And a bird flew up out of the turret and above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. The bird flew up out of the turret. Turret means the house is quite a big building. It may be a large building or a castle-like home. And it refers to a situation that the place may be rural, far away from towns, because a bird flew up. As the traveler knocked at the door, no one answered. He becomes impatient. He smote upon the door again a second time. Smote here means strike with force. He again shouts, "Is there anybody there?" But no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. The traveler knocked at the door, but nobody came downstairs to respond to his call or to welcome him. So it appears that it gives a creepy feeling, a scary feeling. The traveler is coming to a house, but nobody responds to his call. No one greets him. Rather, silence pervades everywhere. So a supernatural, a mystical, a mysterious feeling comes to the reader's mind. Here we find the phrase leaf-fringed sill. This again refers to the thing that the house is situated amidst the forest. As no one answers his call, but the traveler knows that there is somebody inside the house, yet no one is answering his call, no one is welcoming him. So he stood perplexed and still. He knocks hard, yet he is unsure whether or not there is actually anyone home in that house situated amidst the woods. If there is somebody, they should have welcomed him. But we see the traveler is quite confused while standing in front of the door, waiting for someone to answer his call, waiting for someone to open the door for him. So there is a tense expectation on the part of the traveler. No doubt he senses that somebody is inside the house. He senses the presence of somebody inside the house. Next stanza. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men. So this stanza makes it clear that no living being inhabits that house. Rather, there is a host of phantom listeners. That means there are only some ghosts who can hear the listener's call but cannot answer. They cannot open the door for him. The house is lonely. It is the solitary house amidst the forest, and some ghosts live there. A scary atmosphere, an eerie atmosphere is created very successfully by the poet. And in any poem of the poet Walter de la Mare, we find that he does not deal with the day-to-day burning problems of the present situation of the real life. Rather, he likes to live in the world of fantasy and dream. And again, here we see he very successfully creates an eerie atmosphere where the expectation of the readers has become also tense because they have seen a traveler standing in front of the door of a house situated amidst the forest and is answering his call. Rather, the poet again brings out some phantom listeners, that means some ghost who is residing inside the house. They stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to the voice from the world of men. The world of men means here the man refers to the traveler. It means the ghosts are not a part of the world of men, but the traveler belongs to the world of men, and the phantom listeners or the ghostly listeners, they hear the traveler's call, but unfortunately they cannot answer. They stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveler's call. They can feel the movement of that traveler's call. They can feel the air shaking and stirred. They are moving in that empty hall, then going to the stair as any human being will do, while the traveler call outside. But they are only listening. They are not answering. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness, answering his cry, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. The atmosphere has become quite eerie. It is a moonlit night. It is a shadowy night because inside the forest the moonbeams penetrate through the leaves of the trees. There are stars also, and everywhere there is stillness. And suddenly the traveler, he becomes quite perplexed. He becomes quite confused because he can sense the presence of some unearthly being, the presence of some ghostly being inside the house. He senses the ghost, and his answer is not, his question is not answered, his call is not answered, and his call is answered only by the stillness. And the only movement is there only of his horse cropping the dark turf. The horse is shearing the grass. For he suddenly smote on the door even louder. The traveler has become quite impatient because he is knocking at the door again and again and again, but no one has come downstairs to answer his call, to open the door for him. So he has become so impatient that he again strikes the door with force. As he knows that no one will answer his call, so he lifts his head towards the window of the upper stories. Tell them I came and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. He utters his last words. He asks them, whoever present inside the house, to convey his message that the traveler had come to keep his promise. He has kept his promise, but unfortunately no one answered. Never the least star made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from the one man left awake. This one man left awake is no other person but the traveler himself. He is the only man, only living being there. The others are only ghosts. Besides the animals, that bird or the horse or whatever animal. The listeners did not answer the traveler's call. He asked them to convey his message that he had come and no one answered, yet he had kept his promise. Yet the listeners did not stir, did not make any movement. His words only echoed inside the house. Oh, they heard his foot upon the stirrup and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. So in this stanza, we see that the traveler leaves the place. He mounted his horse, and we hear the sound of iron on stone, the sound of the hoofs on the road. So at last the traveler left the place, and as he goes away, an all-pervading silence envelops the place again. So we have seen here a very creepy landscape inhabited by only ghosts. Only living person is only the traveler. The poem leaves many questions. The reader's curiosity is not satiated, not satisfied. Why the traveler came to the place, what promise he made to somebody, or who are the people to whom he made that promise, and now who are these ghosts? Why that house is inhabited by ghosts, and why did the traveler came to that ghostly place? Or these questions are not answered. As the traveler rode away, his voice echoed in that house. The ghostly creatures living in that house neither spoke anything nor stirred. Why? But we need not do research on that. We are simply to enjoy the poem. We see horror movies and we enjoy that. Similarly, we can enjoy this poem without thinking about the possible outcome or the possible interpretations why about the traveler's behavior. So we have seen in this poem that the poem does not deal with any burning issue of the modern life. The poet concentrates on romance and nature. A mysterious atmosphere is created, and this is a magic peculiarly his own. He successfully makes us enjoy the unbelievable. The poem is conservative in technique, treating an old theme in an old way, yet the diction is melodious and delicate, expressing evanescent, elusive, and mysterious experience. Thank you. Stay tuned for more.